The message came when I was finishing a facial massage for my client. My beauty salon had always been known for its cozy atmosphere, relaxation, and care. Here, women found the opportunity to forget about their problems, recharge, and feel better. And it was at that moment, when I was gently applying the cooling serum to the client in the dimly lit room, that the phone on the table lit up with a worrying glow. A message from Derek. I'm leaving. I'm going to Los Angeles with Mindy. I took money from our joint account. I hope you'll understand, this is for the best. This is for the best. I slowly inhaled, continuing to move my hands. The movements were smooth, relaxing, perfectly measured. Years of work had taught me the most important thing, to keep a calm exterior, even when everything inside is falling apart. The only thing that gave away my reaction was the slight, almost imperceptible tension in my fingers on the jade roller. I exhaled, releasing that tension. Once the procedure was finished, I explained the last steps of skincare to the client, escorted her to the hall with a warm smile. The doorbell softly rang, leaving me alone with the silence. I picked up the phone, typed a short reply, "Good luck." I turned the phone screen down, turned off the light, and locked the salon. My name is Alice. I'm 42 years old, and I've built my life on my own. At 15, I worked part-time in a hair salon after school, dreaming of one day opening my own beauty salon, a place where women could come tired, exhausted, and drained by life, and leave feeling revived, renewed, and confident. It wasn't an easy path, double shifts, sleepless nights. Every dollar I earned, I saved for the future. Other women in my circle depended on their husbands, seeking financial stability in marriage. I made sure to become my own insurance. By the age of 22, I was already managing my first small salon. And that's when I met Derek. He was charming, with that ease that men who never had to try too hard often have. He always had ideas, dreams, but when it came to making real plans to bring them to life, he had none. And yet, I fell in love, with his confidence, with his ease, with the feeling that he saw something special in me. I married him at 26, full of hope. And for a while, we were probably happy. But as the years passed, it became clear that only one person was working in our marriage. While I spent nights developing marketing strategies, conducting interviews, searching for suppliers, and expanding the business, Derek was jumping from one thing to another. He was waiting for a big opportunity, but he didn't even try to find it. I paid the bills. I developed the business. I made our home cozy and stable. And he waited. Waited for something better, easier, more convenient to come along. And when things got tough, he ran away. And this time was no different. So no, his message didn't surprise me. I saw the warning signs. The night air was cool as I stepped out of the salon and turned the key in the lock. I tightened the strap of my bag. But not from anxiety, not from pain. I was calm. Because while Derek was getting ready to celebrate his new life, thinking he had left me broken and vulnerable, I was already 5 steps ahead. It didn't happen all at once. The destruction of a marriage is not an explosion, but a chain of small cracks. At first, they're barely noticeable. But one day, you look back and realize the foundation is already gone. I didn't want to acknowledge the obvious for a long time. Late work delays that didn't show up in the paycheck. Emotionless responses to my questions about his day. A phone that was always screened down and without sound notifications. I tried to convince myself that it was just a temporary crisis. Work. Stress. He was just tired. Everything would get better. But nothing got better. It started about a year ago. Derek suddenly decided to focus on himself. He had always been indifferent to sports, but suddenly started going to the gym 5 times a week. And not just the gym, his wardrobe changed too. Expensive, fashionable, tight-fitting clothes. Shirts that accentuated his figure. Jeans that fit too well for a man who used to not even know his size. He started wearing cologne again, a scent I didn't recognize. And then came the passwords. We were sitting on the couch, watching a movie when his phone vibrated. He quickly grabbed it, replying to a message, but turned the screen away from me. "Who's that?" I asked casually, as if it didn't matter. "Work," he replied briefly, putting the phone on the armrest. I reached for it out of habit, as I always did. We had no secrets. We used to not. But the screen locked. Another password. Something tightened in my chest. "Did you change the code?" The answer came too quickly. "Yes." "For security." I nodded. But I didn't believe a single word. Derek had always been careless with money, and I had gotten used to managing it. I paid the bills. I saved for a rainy day. But one day, while checking the statements, I noticed an anomaly, a series of payments at expensive restaurants. Late at night, when he was staying late at work. Hotel bookings under the name of some business trip. Large cash withdrawals, none of which fit into our budget. I sat in front of the laptop screen, scrolling through the transactions. My fingers tightened on the mouse, but inside, there was a strange calm. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I opened a new file on the computer and simply named it Derek. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. The point of no return happened 3 months ago. Derek stayed late at work again. It was almost midnight, and his laptop was still at home. Just curiosity, I told myself. I knew the password to his work account. Or at least, I thought I did. New password. I tried again. Nothing. Then something caught my eye, a piece of paper sticking out of the front pocket of his bag. I unfolded it, a receipt. A 5-star restaurant. Dinner for 2. I slowly smoothed it out with my fingers, as if making it real that way. The date, 2 nights ago. The night he worked late. I stared at that receipt for a long time. Then, calmly, I took my laptop, opened the new bank's website, and opened a new account. A fresh start. When Derek came home late that night, mumbling something about a tiring day, my new account had already been funded with all my personal savings. He didn't even notice. The next day, I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer. Not to file for divorce. Not yet. But to be prepared. My lawyer, Gwen Miller, was a tough, experienced woman. I laid all the documents in front of her, statements with suspicious expenses, hotel bookings, restaurant receipts. She looked through them silently, then nodded. "You've already done half of the work for me. What's next?" I asked. She studied me for about 5 seconds, then slowly smiled. "Now we wait for the documents." "That's it." And when he makes his move, she drummed her fingers on the table in rhythm, "We'll make ours." And that move didn't take long to come. 2 weeks ago, I came home earlier than usual and immediately noticed there was a car in the yard. Not our red car. I parked, got out, and opened the door. Footsteps upstairs. The door slammed. I calmly placed my keys on the table, stood still for a few seconds, then softly, in a level voice, called upstairs. "Derek?" Silence. Then, the unmistakable sound of a door opening. He appeared at the top of the stairs. His shirt half unbuttoned. A faint rustling sound came from the room behind him. We stared at each other. His signature, lazy smile, the one that always saved him from trouble, slid across his face. I didn't feel anything. No anger. No jealousy. Not even disappointment. I simply understood it was over. That same evening, I sent the final email to my lawyer. It was time. The reply came almost immediately. Understood. Everything is ready. Let him think he won. And 2 weeks later, he sent me this message. I'm leaving. I'm going to Los Angeles with Mindy. I took the money from our joint account. I hope you'll understand, it's for the best. I didn't flinch. I didn't get angry. I just smiled. Because I knew. I had been ready for this from the very beginning. The next morning, the phone vibrated again, a message from Derek. Don't even think about begging. Mindy and I are leaving tomorrow. I'll pick up my things later. Begging. I quietly laughed, stirring my coffee. Did he really think I was broken? That I was sitting in our, my apartment, crying into a pillow and waiting for his return to beg him to reconsider? He was sure he controlled the situation. His first mistake. I scrolled up through the conversation, rereading his message. All those arrogant phrases, the confidence that he had won. I had carried our whole life for years while he bounced from one failed idea to the next. And now he thought he could just walk away, leaving me with nothing, as if he were the one who was in charge, as if he had any right to something. I took a sip of my coffee, put the cup on the table, grabbed my laptop, and opened my email. The subject, he made his move. Derek has officially left. We're starting the process. Also, I'd like to discuss his use of our joint money for personal trips. Send. I leaned back in my chair, tapping my nails on the table. Next, bank accounts. I opened the app and checked my business account. Every dollar was in place. Because I was smarter and didn't mix salon money with family finances. Then, our joint account. What was left of it? Or rather, nothing. Derek had really emptied it down to the last cent. Only, he didn't know I had already left nearly an empty balance in there. He thought he had taken everything. In reality, he only took what I had left for him. I smirked. Next step. I opened the credit card statement, 2 business class tickets, a 5-star hotel in Los Angeles. I picked up the phone and dialed. Hello. This is Alice. I need to cancel my card and dispute fraudulent transactions. Of course. Could you please name the suspicious charges? Yes. 2 tickets to Los Angeles, purchased yesterday, and the booking for the Grand Palace Hotel. I paused, letting a touch of irony show in my voice. Oh, and please remove my husband as an authorized user. The woman on the line kept a professional tone, but I almost heard a note of satisfaction in her voice. Of course, Ms. Alice. I'll immediately cancel his access. Do you need a confirmation for your report? Yes, that would be perfect. I finished the call and just smiled. Derek and Mindy were probably already dreaming of the Azure Coast, thinking they had escaped into a new luxurious life. They would arrive at the airport, joyful, excited, with their suitcases, and find out that their tickets were canceled, the booking was void, and they had no options. They'd have to search for a budget hotel, survive on instant noodles, while desperately trying to figure out what went wrong. Mindy. I hope you like cheap hotels. By noon, as expected, messages from Derek started coming in. What did you do with the card? The airline canceled the tickets. The hotel is gone too. Are you out of your mind? Answer me. I looked at the screen and simply deleted the message. Let him stew in it. I entered the salon, ready to begin a new workday. Friday was always the busiest day. And we had just received a new batch of luxury cosmetics. Life went on, even when your ex-husband ran off with a young lover. Around noon, the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Derek. It was his mother. I ignored the first call. When she called back, I sighed and answered. Alice, dear, her voice was calm, but I could hear the tension. Hello, Olivia, I replied in a neutral tone. Silence. Derek told us everything. I stayed silent, letting her continue. He said you were always too controlling. That you suffocated him, didn't let him breathe. I rolled my eyes. Olivia, let's get to the point. Did he also tell you that he drained our joint account? That he used our money to pay for a trip with another woman? Silence. Then a heavy sigh. He said you didn't leave him any choice. You were cold, distant. Olivia, I calmly interrupted, I have his message. Do you want me to read one to you? For example, the one where he mocks me, bragging about taking all the money? Or the one where he writes that I'm already old, but at least I have a job? More silence. Then a concession. Yeah, he really was harsh. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. I appreciate the call, Olivia. But I think the conversation is over. Wait, you mean it's already? Yes. The divorce has been filed. So quickly? Yes, so quickly. I ended the call, feeling a sense of relief as another chapter of my life closed. By evening, the gossip had spread. Derek and Mindy were sitting in some roadside motel, not a five-star hotel on the beach, but a gray, depressing room with a sagging bed. Derek tried to pay with his personal card, but it was blocked. Mindy was starting to realize that her fairy tale was falling apart. She probably imagined herself as the wife of a successful man, and now she was stuck in a room with a loser who had neither money nor stability. Another call. This time, it was his sister, Stacy. She didn't try to blame me. On the contrary. I can't believe I ever trusted him, she muttered. He lied to all of us. And then I realized Derek was starting to lose even his close ones. He thought he could ditch me and come out as the winner, but this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop. 5 missed calls from Derek. 3 from his mother. I ignored them and slowly stretched, enjoying the morning. Soft sunlight was streaming through the bedroom window, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. The phone vibrated again. Another message from Derek. Did you know I was leaving? Do you understand what you've done? Mindy and I are stuck here now. She's angry. Alice, fix this. I took a sip of coffee and calmly deleted the message. Fix this? No, Derek. This is your problem. I knew where they were. Too many people were more than happy to tell me all the details. Derek and Mindy were sitting in a rundown hotel, on credit. But the world didn't work by his rules. His bank card was blocked, and his personal credit limit was maxed out. A fact he only found out at the front desk. For some reason, Mindy didn't rush to pull him out of the situation. Maybe she was hoping he'd figure something out. But Derek didn't have a plan B. I was in the middle of recording deliveries for the new spa equipment when my secretary knocked on my office door. Alice, Olivia's calling. She says it's urgent. I exhaled. All right. Connect me. I picked up the receiver. Alice, what did you do? I calmly put my pen down. Hello, Olivia. Good morning to you too. You blocked his credit cards. You stopped him from leaving. That's cruel. I tilted my head. No, Olivia. What's cruel is emptying a joint account and trying to run off with a young lover. I just protected myself. A heavy sigh came from the other end. He doesn't know what to do now. I shrugged, even though she couldn't see it. Well, now he'll have to figure something out. He's still my son, Alice. I don't want him to end up without a roof over his head. I smiled. Did he think about that when he betrayed me? She fell silent. Then, tiredly, she said, Just be careful, Alice. He blames everything on you. As always, I replied with a slight smirk and hung up. By evening, I got a new message, this time from his sister, Stacy. Alice, I'm sorry. I can't believe I ever defended him. I raised an eyebrow, surprised. What happened? The reply came quickly. He tried to stay with me. Said he just needed some time to recover. I refused. I smiled. And how did he take it? As usual, he blamed me. Said I betrayed the family. But you know, Alice, I can't defend his behavior anymore. He lied to all of us. I stared at the screen for a while. They had all once believed his words. But now, everyone saw him for who he truly was. At midnight, I received the final call from a lawyer. Alice, the court has approved our emergency petition. I smiled. That meant all remaining joint assets would be frozen. Also, Derek was now required to return the money he withdrew from the joint account within 24 hours. I laughed. He wasn't going to like that. Trust me, he's already furious. Just a few minutes later, my phone vibrated again. Derek, you can't do this. You can't just take everything away from me. I tilted my head and smiled. Take everything? I built it all myself. He just thought he could take half. I forwarded his message to the lawyer. Let him deal with his disaster. I poured myself a glass of wine and settled on the couch, admiring the city lights through the panoramic windows. Tomorrow, Derek would have to face reality. And I was finally free. Monday morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I expected to feel nervous, maybe even afraid, about the upcoming hearing. But as I looked into the mirror, fastening the buttons of my dark blue blazer, I felt nothing but confidence. This day was inevitable, and I was ready for it. I arrived at the courthouse 15 minutes early. My heels echoed on the marble floor as I headed to the room where my lawyer, Gwen Miller, was already waiting. She quickly assessed my appearance and then gave me an approving nod. Ready? I smiled. More than ready. She handed me a folder with documents. Great. Because today, Derek will finally understand, this is not a negotiation. This is a trial. I walked into the courtroom. Derek was already there. He was trying to look presentable, wearing an expensive, pressed shirt, but dark circles under his eyes, disheveled hair, and a lack of confidence in his posture betrayed him. He looked at me. I didn't look away. In his eyes, there was irritation, confusion, and finally, hidden despair. He knew. He had lost. The judge quickly glanced through the papers. Are you contesting the division of assets? Derek's lawyer hastily stood up. Yes, Your Honor. My client believes he is entitled to half of the business. Gwen didn't even let him finish. Your Honor, the Laura Spa Beauty Salon is a premarital asset. All financial documents confirm that Ms. Alice owned the business before marriage and maintained separate accounts. Moreover, we have evidence that the gentleman never made any financial contributions. The judge turned to Derek. Derek, do you have any evidence that you financed or participated in the development of the business? Derek shifted in his seat. Well, I supported her emotionally. That's nonsense, Gwen raised an eyebrow. Is that equivalent to financing a business? Derek's lawyer tried to salvage the situation. My client asserts that his support was crucial for the business's success. Let's be realistic, Gwen interrupted. If emotional support were a valid reason for owning a business, we'd be having a very different conversation today. But since there are no investments, documents, or evidence of his involvement, this claim can be considered unfounded. There were quiet chuckles in the courtroom. The judge sighed, looking at Derek. Mr. Derek, do you confirm that you never invested in the Laura Spa Beauty Salon? Derek clenched his jaw. Yes. Then your claim for a share of the business is dismissed. A stamp. The papers were signed. Derek was starting to realize that his plan had crashed against reality. But this was only the first blow. The judge flipped through the papers. These documents show that Derek admitted in messages that he withdrew all the money from the account and spent it on himself and his mistress. There are also transactions, business class tickets, a 5-star hotel, and other expensive expenses made over the last month. The judge squinted as she read the documents. I looked at Derek. He was staring dejectedly at the table. Mr. Derek, do you admit that you used joint finances for personal entertainment? Derek shifted his jaw without lifting his eyes. Yes. The judge nodded. Then the court rules that all remaining joint assets will remain frozen until the final divorce. And also orders Derek to return the stolen funds. Derek jerked his head up. But that money is gone. The judge replied in an icy tone. Then you'll have to find a way to get them back. Derek sank into the chair. He had lost. And judging by the look on his face, he knew it. As we stepped out of the courtroom, I took a deep breath of fresh air. The sky was clear and sunny, and the city was humming with its usual buzz. I pulled out my sunglasses and put them on as Gwen walked beside me, clearly pleased with a job well done. Well, that was fun, she chuckled. I smiled. Better than I expected. Behind us, Derek was hastily discussing something with his lawyer, but his attorney was already gathering papers, clearly aware the case was closed. Derek had believed until the very end that he could turn things around. That he would come out on top. Instead, he walked away with nothing. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Gwen nodded toward a nearby cafe. Lunch? I smiled again. Absolutely. I turned and walked away, without looking back. I was free. Derek had always thought he was the smartest one in the room. He spent his whole life believing he could weasel his way out of any situation, that he'd always get away with it. But this time, he'd gone too far. I hadn't seen or heard from him since the trial. But I didn't need to. People were more than happy to share the updates. First, he lost his job. His already shaky standing at the company crumbled when management found out about the financial scandal, followed by complaints about inappropriate conduct in the workplace. It wasn't an official firing, of course. Just a polite suggestion to resign quietly to avoid an even bigger mess. Derek thought he'd land a new job easily. But his reputation was already working against him. Companies don't want employees with questionable histories, especially ones who stole money from their own wives. Mindy lasted longer than I thought she would. Maybe she was too embarrassed to run away immediately. But eventually, her patience ran out. At one point, Derek even tried to convince her to take out a loan in her name so they could start fresh. But surprisingly, she wasn't that naive. A few weeks after the trial, she packed her bags and left. Her social media filled up with philosophical posts about toxic relationships and the lessons we learn. Derek did the one thing he feared most. He moved back in with his mother. The same man who used to mock anyone who couldn't live on their own had to return to his old bedroom, where posters of rock bands from his teenage years still hung on the walls. He went back to the very place he'd spent his whole life trying to escape. One day, his sister, Stacy, came into the salon. I didn't expect to see her. She looked a little awkward, but gathered her courage and came up to me. "I want to apologize, Alice." I was surprised. "For what?" She hesitated, then sighed heavily. "For ever believing him. For taking his side. I thought you were being too hard on him, that you were the one suffocating him." I didn't say anything. I just waited for her to finish. She shook her head and let out a soft laugh. But after seeing how he behaved after the divorce, it all made sense. He's always expected someone else to solve his problems, to save him. But no one did. I tilted my head. "And now?" She sighed again. "He tried to move in with me. Said he just needed some time to get back on his feet, but I said no." I smiled. "How did he take it?" Stacy shrugged. "Same as always, he blamed me. Said I betrayed the family. But you know what, Alice? I can't justify his behavior anymore. He lied to all of us." And that's when I realized Derek had lost his last bit of support. Even his own family didn't want to deal with him anymore. A few weeks later, I got another letter from the lawyer. Derek had filed a motion to revisit the division of assets. I laughed. Seriously? He claimed the settlement was unfair, that he was under emotional distress and wanted the terms reviewed. I rolled my eyes. "And what did the court say?" "Denied." Instantly. I smiled. "And what about court fees?" Now he owed even more. That made me truly laugh. Then, a month later, I got another unexpected call. Olivia, I didn't want to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello." Alice, her voice sounded tired. "Hi, Olivia," she exhaled slowly. "He still blames you, you know. Says you ruined his life, that if you had just let him go, everything would have been fine." I smiled and shook my head. "So he still thinks he did nothing wrong?" Olivia sighed heavily. "Yes. And you know what? I realized something. We made him this way. We spent our whole lives covering for him, cleaning up his messes, letting him ruin his life." She paused. "I just wanted you to know, before we stopped talking." I nodded slowly, even if she couldn't see it. And in that moment, I let go, not just of Derek, but of his family too. That evening, as I closed up the spa, I paused at the door for a moment and looked around at what I had built, a place Derek once tried to take from me but failed. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of lavender and warm vanilla, and smiled. I was finally, truly free. 6 months had passed since the divorce. In that time, the spa chain had opened a second location in downtown Boston. The irony, while Derek was piecing together the ruins of what he used to call you a little hobby, my business was thriving more than ever. The opening of the new salon was a major event, with a sign at the entrance that read, "Welcome to a new level of self-care." Appointments were fully booked weeks in advance, even before we opened. I hired new specialists, expanded our luxury cosmetics range. Derek was still living with his mother. His attempts to land a decent job failed one after another. Companies didn't want to be associated with someone who had a reputation as a fraud. Friends who once supported him began to distance themselves. Many wanted nothing to do with a man who stole from his own wife and tried to drag her through a messy court battle. Mindy disappeared from his life completely. She started dating someone new, someone without debt and legal trouble. Now, when I heard about Derek, it was only through awkward messages from acquaintances. Heard he's trying to get a job as a bartender. Says he'll be back on top soon. He was still living with his mom, insisting it was only temporary. He kept posting old photos, pretending everything was going great. Funny thing, nothing ever changed. One day, I got another letter from my lawyer. Derek was once again trying to contest the asset division. I rolled my eyes, but Gwen just laughed. Don't worry, the judge already denied it. Ordered him to cover additional legal costs too. I smiled. Perfect. Now he couldn't even sue me without sinking deeper into debt. He owed me more than ever. A year later, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference. During the Q&A session, a young woman stood up. My husband says I'm being paranoid for not wanting to combine our bank accounts. He says in marriage, you should share everything. I smiled, remembering how Derek used to tell me the same thing, what's mine is yours, baby. I leaned forward and looked out over the audience. My ex used to say the same thing. I paused, letting the words settle in the air. And then he tried to take half of my business. The room fell silent, then nods followed. Everyone understood. Trust is wonderful, but protecting yourself is smart. My business kept growing. I opened a third salon. I started getting invited on TV to talk about the secrets of success in the beauty industry. And Derek? He finally moved out of his mother's house, but it wasn't into the apartment of his dreams. He rented a tiny studio above a garage in a quiet residential area. He worked a low-paying job he hated. Still told people he'd be back in the game soon. But by now, everyone knew the truth. He had lost. In my office, there was a framed screenshot on the wall, the last message Derek ever sent me. Have fun with your little salon, at least you won't be bored in your old age. And right below it, a certificate from the city council recognizing my contribution to the beauty industry. I looked at it and smiled. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's success.